Hi, I'm back with theory number 2 about Larry David. Well, if you catch about HBO, Curb Your Enthusiasm, you'll find a few cues about Larry David. One, Larry David would never sing Happy Birthday because he doesn't like the song Happy Birthday. Larry David would never ever sing Happy Birthday. So don't expect if you invite Larry David to your party, he'll sing Happy Birthday. He probably won't. He doesn't like the song Happy Birthday. No one ever knows why Larry David doesn't like Happy Birthday. It could be that Happy Birthday was a song that reminds him of his childhood, whoever knows, and I don't think we'll ever know. B. Larry David argues with kids over lemonade. The most ridiculous thing you can do is argue with a bunch of 8-year-olds over a lemonade. And it was, over the price of lemonade. I don't know what it was, but Larry David on one of the shows was arguing with kids over their lemonade. Like, nobody argues with children over lemonade. Just drink it. It's probably for a good cause. So, Larry David once again argued with kids over a lemonade. That is the most ridiculous thing a human being can do. That's only Larry David would do that. Another thing I notice about Larry David is he says things that are kind of inappropriate, that some people would find inappropriate, and other people would say, well, it's just Larry David being Larry David. Larry David has a lot of opinions that not very many people agree on. So, Larry David, I guess you could say he's a very opinionated man. Another thing about Larry David is he's always getting thrown out of Susie Green's house for some reason. He'll do something to get thrown out, or say something out of turn when it's not his turn to speak, and interrupt the conversation. That's the typical Larry David. So next time you invite Larry David, make sure you're prepared and don't sing happy birthday with him, because he will not sing happy birthday on your birthday. I do not know why he won't, but Larry David will never sing happy birthday. He doesn't like that song. For some reason, it annoys him. And don't ever get Larry David to sing happy birthday, because he won't. Another thing I noticed about Larry is he'll text you about your dead pet. If your pet dies, he'll send a text about his condolence to someone's beloved pet that passed away, which is very insensitive. And apparently, text is inadequate to a human or a pet if they pass away. You don't send a text, you let them grieve. So, he's not very sensitive when it comes to the death of a pet. I think he compares humans more than pets. To him, he thinks that a pet doesn't acquire not to send a text to someone if their pet passes away. To him, he would rather think of that as a human, really. But Larry David's kind of insensitive, so you wouldn't really ask Larry to even send condolence. I mean, the most thing you can do is send a card to show your gratitude about how you feel for that person who lost their beloved pet and help them grieve. Another thing that I notice about Larry David is he argues with someone taking a soda out his fridge, and then he'll go to his friend's house and eat out their fridge, and then have a fit when someone takes a soda out his fridge. So it's like he's arguing over soft drinks. That is ridiculous. Nobody does it. Another other thing I notice about Larry David is his empathy for feelings toward another person. He has no empathy, so yes, and he's pretty sarcastic when you try to confront him about something. He's always getting confronted by an angry wife or someone angry at him. Like, he'll do something to be confronted by, or say something out of turn that's really not his business. And another thing about Larry David is he thinks people sampling after sample after sample after sample, to him that's a sample abuser. And he thinks that if you sample too much, you're a sample abuser. I really think that if you sample a lot of flavors, you don't know which one to buy, then just sample them and then buy the one that comes to your mind. That's my opinion, but Larry David has to make it an argument. To him, if you sample too many flavors or abuse your sampling privileges, then you're a sample abuser. I've never heard of that, but according to Larry David, there's such a thing as sample abusers. So that is funny. And another thing about Larry David is he will stare at a dog, and a dog won't like it, or he'll do something to annoy the pet dog, or stare at it when he was told not to. So that's the typical Larry David. So next time you have a dinner party and invite Larry David over, be prepared. Larry David is going to probably bring his friend John Hamm with him, who they call Larry David Jr., because they'll both get in trouble and kicked out. But Susie Green on the show, how do I compare Susie Green? Susie Green is always swearing about Larry David. She is very happy about Larry David because he'll do things to get her to kick him out her house. Like, he'll say something and he'll get kicked out the house, or he'll go in her daughter's room or something and get kicked out the house, or say something that's not his business, or wake his daughter up by his fatasha, or his shoes will wake up someone's child and they'll get in trouble, and he'll say that they're too old to believe in the tooth fairy, which is totally not true. But he doesn't believe in the tooth fairy because he was never educated on it. Maybe when he was little, they never talked to him about that kind of stuff. I don't know. Larry David is very, as I say, rude, or he says things that kind of people would think, oh, well, Larry David has an opinion. Like, for instance, someone parked on a side street. It was a sidewalk, and someone parked on the street. It was a public street, and it was only 45 inches off the curb. And then Larry David was arguing with some guy over parking. And then Larry David called someone a pig parker. And Larry David just totally blew it out proportion. It's a public street. People can park on a public street. But according to Larry David, he calls people a pig parker. So if you're Larry David, don't park on the public street if Larry David was around, because that's how it starts. So Larry David thinks someone an inch off the curb is annoying to him, or he'll say stuff like a person is a pig parker because he doesn't like people parking on the street. He doesn't have to like it, but it's a public street. So most people don't argue over public parking on a street, or if it's an inch on the curb, that's not blocking the curb. So Larry David is sort of out of line when it comes to that. There was another episode, I think it's in season 8, Larry David is confronted by an angry wife over talking about her marriage, which wasn't really any of Larry David's business. Again, Larry David says things that aren't his business. Like, he shouldn't have said anything about the woman's marriage. In fact, It really wasn't any of Larry David's business. How many of you believe that Larry David could be right and some of his comments are wrong? Let me know what you think about Larry David on Curb Your Enthusiasm. Let me know in the comments down below.